Back. Gentleman from West Virginia, Mr. Mooney, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I do appreciate the comments from my colleague from California, distinguishing between the people and the government. That's true of a lot of despotic governments around the world, Iran and other places. My mother fled communist Cuba, where that country still oppresses the people every day. I also agree with his comments about buying American. When I go shopping with my 3 children for Christmas, it drives them crazy because I won't buy anything made in China. And they have a hard time finding presents for my wife and stuff that's not made in China. But it is true that we need to be more patriotic when it comes to that in this country. The Chinese government is moving rapidly toward implementing its digital currency, the digital Yuan, controlled by its central bank. Mr. Lorber, China is an authoritarian state and violator of human rights. Can you walk us through how the Chinese Communist Party can use its digital yuan to further crack down on dissent and the freedoms of its people?
Thank you, Congressman. I appreciate the question. So I think the concern that's been identified here is essentially that by using the digital renminbi domestically, China would be able to secure more information about the transactional history, the transactional preferences, and other personal information about individuals and entities who are using the digital renminbi. So essentially, it would give them additional visibility into what's happening within the country.
Thank you. I mean, it makes sense. The Chinese government spies on everybody, and its own people are not free of that. Many advocates of this central bank digital currency here claim that it's known as CBDC, claim that the U.S. not moving forward with a CBDC risks losing the U.S. dollar's status as a reserve currency. So, Mr. Lorber, if the U.S. does not move forward with this central bank digital currency and instead allows private sector digital currencies to thrive, does that actually risk the U.S. dollar's reserve currency status?
So I can't speak to the sort of broader macroeconomic questions about the adoption of a federal CBDC. What I will say, and going back to an earlier conversation we had on this, is that I don't necessarily think that the rise of the Chinese digital renminbi for cross-border payments poses a major national security challenge to the dollar in the short term. I think it's something which is very warranted to look at in the medium term, but at least in terms of the next, I think Mr. Harrell used the time frame of 12 months. I would say for the next few years, it's not something which would displace the dollar or create a risk of the displacement of the dollar.
Okay. Thank you for that answer. Look, we all know that President Richard Nixon finally took us off the gold standard and when he was president, and now the U.S. dollar is simply the full faith and credit of the United States of America. It's not tied to anything. I have a bill to go back to the gold standard. I've invited my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, if they're really serious about the dollar, to tie it back to the gold standard, make it a superior product that way. But they won't do it. They won't do it. They refuse because they want to play all the games they want to play with the Fed. And so you have the rise of digital currency, also not tied to anything specific, not much different than the U.S. dollar. So let's go back to the gold standard if we're serious about this. I appreciate we're having this important hearing. There's no doubt that China is our top competitor and adversary. The Chinese Communist Party, their government, likes to cheat and oppress their own people. We have a lot of work to do to hold China accountable, and just because China's doing something doesn't mean the U.S. has to follow. The Chinese is a communist government. We're a free market economy here. We don't have to follow them. In fact, we should be very skeptical of following them. The United States has the best free market system in the world, and that's precisely why we do not run our country the way China does, and why we're the greatest superpower the world has ever seen. So let's not make a mistake here. But with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll yield back to the balance of my time.